It's very common in our society to have mold and bacteria in our homes from water-damaged events. This occurs due to a lack of knowledge in how to appropriately remediate when we do have water-damaged events, leaving us with unwanted mold and bacteria harboring in our homes. This video will guide you as to the fundamentals to how these conditions happen so you can be better prepared with what steps to take. First, it's important to understand about water and its important role in indoor health. Water is essential to the functioning of most known life forms, including mold and bacteria. If you've watched my video regarding organisms and particles, you'll understand how the particles in our environment, when met with water, create an opportunity for these particles to become living organisms in our homes, thus producing more particles. When this occurs, more and more particles enter our body, with each breath we take having the potential to overload our immune system. In order to stop this from occurring, we have to stay on top of water damage and humidity inside of our homes. In case you don't know, mold only requires the presence of water or moisture for 24 to 48 hours in order to grow. This means if you have a leak, you'll want to make sure it's dried properly, and if you have 60% relative humidity or higher, you'll want to install countermeasures like a dehumidifier to prevent mold growth conditions. Unfortunately, some molds only require 60% relative humidity or greater to begin to grow. Modern buildings present challenges with drying because many new homes have multiple layers of substrates. When water is trapped between two surfaces, it dries much slower than a wet surface exposed to open air. This means that the areas where drywall is touching the framing or insulation can harbor that moisture even in the presence of a dehumidifier. On top of that, many leaks inside of a home or building leak for a while before we even notice it, further adding to the presence of water or moisture, creating an environment for mold to grow. That's why I always recommend to remove the wet building material to ensure that it dries properly. When removing the wet building material, it's always good to do so using engineering controls, like 6mm plastic containments and air scrubbers to prevent any cross-contamination of mold and bacteria in the event there is some present. Let's talk about flood cuts for a second. You may have heard the term, which means to cut 1 to 2 feet of the bottom of the wall to remove any wet material. Now this makes sense for a horizontal water event where water may have seeped into the drywall. But what about if the water cascaded downward? Cutting 1 to 2 feet at the bottom of the wall when the water came from the top would be a serious misstep. Always open up along the path the water traveled to prevent trapped moisture, mold, and bacterial growth. Unfortunately, current standards would consider this overkill. However, when it comes to individuals' health, we should stop using words like overkill and start using words like preventative action. When we start taking preventative action to ensure that mold and bacteria are no longer viable, we really start to get a handle on water-damaged buildings before they become a problem. Now, what about past or inactive water leaks? Our data shows that while mold colonies will sporulate less in the absence of water, they still create particles that circulate around the home or building, where they can circulate through the HVAC system and continue to enter the bodies of the inhabitants. Here's one example of mold on the framing during construction, and the same types and similar quantities in the HVAC after the home was built. Keep in mind the HVAC was not installed until the building was enclosed and the water intrusion was corrected. How does mold and bacteria get in the environment if it's trapped behind walls? It's simple. No home is hermetically sealed, and since mold is between 2 and 4 microns, or roughly 25 to 50 times smaller than what the eye can see, that little space below your baseboard and the various cracks and crevices throughout your home are like a theme park entrance for particles as small as mold and bacteria. So what I hope you learned from this video is the following. 1. In order to have a healthy home, you have to understand how mold and bacteria take over your home. Unwanted water and moisture. 2. When water and moisture come into our homes, it's important to act fast and to set up engineering controls as a precaution in case mold and bacteria are already present. 3. Always follow the path the water traveled and remove any building materials that can harbor trapped moisture to prevent mold and bacterial growth. 4. Do not neglect past water damage events because even if you think it dried quick enough, due to the potential for trapped moisture between two surfaces, wet insulation, etc., you could be neglecting a large colony of mold even if there are no visible signs of mold. 5. Knowledge is power. Arm yourself with knowledge so you won't be the adverse effect of someone without it. Health begins at home.